وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينَ. Do good to whom? Three people are being explained here: the relatives, the orphans, and the needy. And today we shall be talking about the rights of these three sections of the society. Dhil Qurba, we mean the relations of the kin, our near and dear relatives. Quran, in more than one verse, multiple verses and multiple surahs of the Quran explain us the rights of the relations of kin over all of us. Verse number 83 of Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah highlights and explains a covenant which was taken with the people of Bani Israel, and these are the 10 commandments which were given to Hazrat Musa alayhi salam. Allah says, وَإِذْ أَخَذْنَا مِيثَاقَ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ لا تعبدون إلا الله وبالوالدين إحسانا وذي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وقولوا للناس حسنا. Allah says, remember what? When Allah accepted a solemn pledge, a covenant from Bani Israel. Worship none but Allah and do good to your parents, to the relations of kin, to the orphans and poor, and speak kindly to all the people. Then in the first verse of Surah An-Nisa, we've already gone through that, and if I revise, it was said, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ الَّذِي تَسَاءَلُونَ بِهِ وَالْأَرْحَامِ. Fear Allah, in whose name you demand your rights from each other, and the bonds and ties of the relationships of kin. Then in verse number 27 of Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah, while talking about the disobedience, the fasiqun are the disobedience, Allah says, who are they? الذين ينقضون عهد الله من بعد ميثاقه ويقطعون ما أمر الله به أن يوصل ويفسدون في الأرض أولئك هم الخاسرون. These are the people who are the losers. So these disobedience, who are the losers? They do what? Allah says, who break the bond with Allah, who break the covenant of Allah, and then they do what? They sever what Allah has ordered to be joined. What has Allah ordered to be joined? The relations of kin. And what Allah has forbidden to be severed is the bonds of the relations of the blood relations and the relations of the womb. And then in verse 90 of Surah Nahl, Allah has highlighted the three do's and the three don'ts of Quran, and Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ بِالْعَدْلِ وَالْإِحْسَانِ وَإِيتَاءِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى وَيَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنكَرِ وَالْبَغْيِ. إِنَّ اللَّهَ, there is absolutely no doubt that Allah enjoins upon you, number one, justice, doing good or ihsan, and spending, that is generosity towards your fellow beings. And Allah forbids you what is shameful, and Allah says the other three things are told, which are the don'ts of Quran. So these are the highlighted three do's of the Quran. And then in the verse number 177 of Surah Al-Baqarah, where Allah highlights the concept of being virtuous, the concept of being of piety, is what Allah says, لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تَوَلُّوا وَجُوهَكُمْ قِبَلَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَالْمَلَائِكَةِ وَالْكِتَابِ وَالنَّبِيِّينَ وَآتَى الْمَالَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ ذَوِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينَ. Allah says that true piety or true virtue is not turning your faces towards the east or the west, but the true piety or the true virtue is one who believes in Allah, the day of resurrection, the angels, the revelations, that is the book of Allah, and the prophets. And the concept of piety and the concept of virtue as per the definition of virtue and piety after belief, Allah says what? وَآتَ الْمَالَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ ذَوِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينَ. And he spends his wealth for the love of Allah. Upon whom? Upon the relations of kin, for the orphans, and for the needy and for the poor. So now, if I sum up the message of all these 4 or 5 verses which I have recited and which I have translated, I think I can, and you can, all of us, we can summarize that if we want to fulfill the covenant or the pledge of Allah, we want to come up to the level of a God-fearing person, and if we want to obey the do's and don'ts of Allah, and if we want to be virtuous, and if we do not want to be one of the disobedience, then what do we need to do? We need to maintain the bonds of the kin. We need to be kind. We need to be generous. We need to be helping. We need to be caring. We need to be loving. And we need to be merciful and good to the relationships of kin.